Thank you so much for joining me. This is Austin, and this is another entry in the Respond in Kind video series. It's been a while, and I'm really thankful if you're watching this. So, I believe this is the 10th entry, and the 10th entry was regarding suffering, okay? Specifically, embracing your suffering makes it more tolerable than aiming to escape it. And I know that sounds like something you could Google for an Instagram caption, get a lot of likes on a post, right? It's actually something that Dr. Peterson, he stated explicitly, but also resonated with me after I reflected on those depressive states that I tended to get into. I realized that anytime I had assignments to do, or when there was training that needed to be done, or really when any obligation was rising from the horizon that I didn't want to look at, but it was just shining on me, I would get extremely lethargic, but not only that, I would get extremely sleepy. It was like the opposite of 5-hour energy, where like no one knows what's in those little things, but we take it and we get that boost. Well, if you got a blender and you put inside of it a meeting with a friend, throw in an 8-hour work shift, sprinkle in some upcoming assignment due dates, and then just because we can, let's top it off with some overdue bills. If you took all that, put it in a blender, you would have the ingredients for a 5-hour nap. And I'm not even kidding. Like, that was the recipe that would put me to sleep day after day. And it was a vicious cycle where not only would I be more uncomfortable after trying to sleep off what I should have jumped on, but I'd also wake up more tired than I was before I took the nap. And so it was a vicious cycle where I would go to sleep because I'm stressed, wake up tired, go to sleep because I'm tired, wake up even more stressed. And it was horrible day after day. And looking back on it, the first time that happened, I must have been in 2nd grade, somewhere around that age. And, you know, we lived in Compton on Almond Street next to a shelter. And at the shelter, families would come and go. And sometimes I'd play with the new kids, you know, before they leave. They were like my new friends. And one day I went into the backyard of our Compton home, and next to the fence were crumpled up pieces of paper. You know, me being the curious kid, I decided to see what it was about, and I opened them, and they were love notes, you know, written by some young, unsteady hand. The handwriting was very sloppy, but I could read them, and my stomach turned. I felt horrible reading them because they were way more vulgar than anything a 2nd grader should have been reading. You know, it was 3 of them, and I'll never forget, one of them said, "I put his wiener in my mouth and it tasted like peanut butter." And I read that, and like I said, I felt sick to my stomach. And so I tore the love notes away, threw them in the trash, and went back inside. And as I'm in my room, I'm just sitting there like, God, I feel horrible. Like, I just want this feeling to go away. And sleep came to me as a solution. So I climbed on the top bunk, because, you know, me and my brothers had a tri-level bunk bed. I climbed on the top bunk, went to sleep. And that was the first time I can recall of many times to come where I would sleep off discomfort and pain. The exact opposite of embracing your suffering. Now, I don't know if that was the wrong thing to do as a kid, because I was a kid, right? Like, what more could you have done in that situation? But I do know that as an adult, that's exactly the wrong thing to do. To put yourself to sleep anytime conflict or discomfort is approaching, mainly because it's just not helpful. You know, as a kid, a lot of your issues, they're surface, they're how you feel. And so if you can just resolve how you feel, then the problem itself is solved, it's done. But as adults, our problems tend to be more real. There tends to be more valid reasons behind them. And pacifying those feelings without addressing what's causing them isn't productive. It's actually counterproductive a lot of the times. You know, some of you have children that you take care of, and if you don't go to work to pay for their overpriced medicine, they're gonna die. Or maybe you don't have kids, maybe you're living on your own, and if you don't go to work or find work, depending on the situation you're in, there are real consequences that are come to you, and de-stressing, taking away the stress, isn't necessarily gonna solve those issues. And by the way, just because this is kind of relevant, that's why I don't like philosophies that endorse happiness and prioritize happiness, because it's like, there are valid reasons why people are stressed and concerned a lot of the times. And Dr. Peterson, he helped me state this like more explicitly, where he's like, if happiness makes itself available, by all means you should take it, but do not expect it to be the baseline of your life. It's just too fragile. There are going to be more situations that oppose your happiness than there are that will facilitate them. And you know this, whether you want to say it explicitly or whether the truth makes you comfortable or feel uneasy, the facts are the facts. You live it every day. We know that sustaining happiness is much more difficult than having it destroyed. And so the question then becomes, well, if it's not going to be happiness, what do I prioritize? Like, what is going to be my North Star? and it's something like competence. It's going to be your ability to confront suffering and either make it productive, mitigate it, or completely extinguish it. And that's where the philosophy embracing your suffering comes into play. That's exactly what you do, is you embrace the fact that problems are an integral part of your life. And that's not just useful to you, but it's also useful to you, the people around you, and the people around the people around you. I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed whenever I show up to my day or my life in a meaningful way, like I'm ready to confront my issues, I'm waking up early, I'm doing the difficult things that I know I should be doing, that affects the people in my house. Like just the other day, I'd gotten out of a rut finally, and my mom, literally the day I came out of it, she asked me like, hey, can we go walking in the morning? You know, my mom felt more inspired to work out and pursue her goals too. My younger brother, whenever we talk, it seems like we have more meaningful conversations when I'm not being a coward and when I'm not trying to run away from my responsibilities. And you don't think they take that energy to the places that they go and the people that they interact with? They 100% do. And that's how all of that positive energy like radiates, diffuses outward. It's very real. I know that whole, you know, a rock hits the lake and the ripple, you don't know how far the ripple goes. That's real. And it's one thing to talk about it in a metaphorical, spiritual sense, but that's actually very real. When you show up in a meaningful way, the people around you benefit from it, and those people who have benefited from you will pass those benefits outward as well. And when you pitch people happiness and comfort, specifically happiness and comfort as the North Star of their life, it's like, they don't have the chance to do that. In fact, to make the point more clear, it's like, it doesn't matter how happy or how joyful someone is. No one admires the guy who reeks of limeritas and condoms. You know, the dude who's just bathing in impulsive pleasures. You know, no one admires him or looks up to him. If you reflect on all the people that you would look up to and admire, and I'm not talking about their possessions, I'm not talking about how much money they have or the kind of car they drive or the mansion they live in, their lifestyle. I'm talking about their character, their personality, how they approach situations, and the being that they bring forth to things. All of the people that you admire and would love to emulate are people who took their suffering as a call to bring out the best in themselves, and they overcame it by doing that. I guarantee it 100%. And that's the thing is, yeah, when you pitch people happiness, when they're pursuing happiness and comfort, you rob them of the opportunity to do that, to show up in a meaningful way and to inspire the people around them and have the people around those people inspired too. It's really sad, and I would hate for anyone to miss that opportunity, because it really is the point in life, in my opinion. Now, here's another interesting thing about that is, if you do take that seriously and you do take on your responsibilities, you approach suffering, you embrace it, you'll soon realize that the only time you're growing or expanding is actually when you're in the embrace of some pain and discomfort. And that's counterintuitive, because a lot of people, when they're in an uncomfortable situation or when they're doing something awkwardly, they'll take that as indication that something's going wrong or that they're doing something wrong. In fact, maybe you've been in the position where you're doing something you're new to, and the people are looking at you and they say something or look at you in a way that communicates, hey, you need to stick to what you're good at. Like, stay in your lane. This is obviously not for you. You're not meant to be a insert whatever you're trying to do, or you're not a insert whatever you're doing. And that's exactly wrong. You're doing the exact opposite of what needs to happen, because that feeling isn't something to resist or even to take as an indication, a negative indication. It's actually something you need to lean into. It's necessary. That's good. If you take on that embracement of your suffering, you'll realize that that's in fact exactly what needs to happen. You know, if you don't take anything else away from this video, you don't take anything else away from me, I really hope you take this away. Awkwardness and discomfort isn't just like the beginning of mastery, it's actually the prerequisite. You're not going to be good at something unless you are awkward and uncomfortable doing it. And you know, a lot of people, and that's 99 times out of 100, and the 1 times out of 100, that's like the prodigy, the natural. And you really need to throw away the value you have on that, because naturals, prodigies, God-given talent, all of that is bullshit. It really is. And a lot of people put that on a pedestal, you know, natural ability and talent, because it excuses, it justifies their sense of inadequacy. It makes it viable, because it's like, oh, I just wasn't given this God-given talent, but this person was, so I'm gonna laud him because, you know, it takes me off the hook. I don't have to strive. And it's like, yeah, maybe you just doing that because you don't want to put in the hard work. And I'll yield. Maybe someone who's talented will take things further than someone who just works hard. But we don't know where the limits for that guy who works hard are. We really don't. It's up in the air. You don't know how good someone who works hard and puts in effort can get. And before I go too long, because, you know, I could go for 12 hours and I know that you guys don't want a 12-hour video. I want to finish with 2 quotes. And I got them from books that I read. The first one was from Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, and he said, "Any behavior pattern based on the avoidance of pain becomes a doorway to the pain itself." And the second one actually wasn't from a book. It's actually from Thomas Sowell. I hope I pronounced his name right. He said, "There are no solutions, only trade-offs." And both of those are really important quotes. The first one, you know, any behavior pattern trying to avoid pain introduces the pain in your life, is very true. Right? And if you take that in a practical way, you take it literally, then that means it's the exact opposite of embracing your suffering makes it more tolerable. What he's saying is pursuing happiness and comfort will be the most painful, uncomfortable thing that you do. And it's because anything that, basically the way I see it is, if you're constantly avoiding and going around pain and discomfort, you actually increase your sensitivity to it, and it amplifies it when you do finally come across it. It's the exact opposite of embracing your suffering, because if you're constantly putting the pain on yourself and doing painful things that justify themselves, right? It's a pain that has a payoff behind it. If you're constantly introducing those things in your life, then when you do come across suffering, it's familiar to you. You've built up a tolerance for it, and it doesn't affect you as negatively. And then the other quote, "There are no solutions, only trade-offs." That one is, oh my God, the depth behind that quote is so critical, because a lot of people think that if they had more money, or if they got a Porsche, or if they had a mansion, that would solve their problems. But the thing about solutions is every solution introduces its own set of problems that then need to be solved as well. So for instance, you buy a Porsche and you're the man and you have all this social proof, but then your car insurance spiked way up. You're being stopped more by the police because, you know, they wish they were making as much money as you were, because they're upholding justice and it's a good way for them to express their jealousy, right? Or, you know, you get a mansion and now your property taxes yearly are way higher. You have to pay so much more in taxes. It's like, it's not obvious that all your problems being solved would solve all your problems. You would just get new ones. And so, and the biggest thing, so I'm going to finish with this is the last thing I'll say, is I used to live, you know, in my earlier 20s, I lived off of Adams and Hoover, you know, it's the hood. And I met people who, you know, were pursuing comfort and happiness. And, you know, after years of doing that, you know, you'd see them and it's like their eyelids are heavier, and you can just see the light in their eyes just isn't really there. You know, like I said, they reek of like alcohol and drugs, and it's really depressing talking to some of those people, because, you know, some of them I would hang out with and, you know, we'd get to like rapping and they, you know, tell me about the things that they enjoy and were passionate about, but they just completely given up on it because, you know, they realized that happiness and comfort just constantly escaped them and they were depressed by it. And I would just hate for anyone to get caught up in doing that rat race. It's not a productive path to go down. And so that's really the thing. That's the reason why I'm saying, you know, embrace your suffering. It's not something to run away from or take as a negative indication that you're living wrong. It's part and parcel of life. There is no way around it. And that was what the entry was about. So thank you for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a like, drop a comment, let me know what you think. I love engaging with you guys. And it really has been a pleasure. So I'll see you at the next one.